Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Caroline Colas, and I am the Senior Director of Health and Wellness at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. Today on our Positive Psychology Hour, we are going to be discussing understanding and cultivating awe for the high holidays and every day with Rabbi Debra Orenstein. What does religion have to do with positive psychology? Well, it turns out almost everything. In this session, Rabbi Debra Orenstein will focus on awe, which encompasses fear and reverence, as well as wonder and delight. Awe activates a sense of vastness and a sense of humility at the same time, and often the need to rethink one's identity and station in light of those contrasts. Over millennia, awe has been associated primarily with religious experience. However, in the last 15 years, social scientists have studied awe as an emotion. They have shown that awe benefits individuals and society by increasing all kinds of things, from generosity to kindness to social connection and more. And Deborah's going to talk about that with us today. It even reduces stress, inflammation, materialism, and self-centeredness, which sounds like a good thing. So even a few moments of awe have been measured as having positive long-term effects. Rabbi Debra will use the etymology and stories of awe in the Hebrew Bible to enrich our understanding of awe today. She will provide experiences of awe for participants within the hour, as well as exercises to increase awareness of awe and the ability to cultivate it beyond today. The upcoming Jewish high holidays are also called the Days of Awe, celebration, creation, good versus evil, and human potential, including forgiveness, repentance, change, and growth. Rabbi Debra will discuss these themes as sources of awe that increase wonderment over the gift of life, whether during the high holidays or at any time. A little bit about Rabbi Debra. We're so delighted. She's been with us before, and she's come back today to speak with us about this important topic. She brings meaning and relevance to the Jewish spiritual tradition to diverse audiences. Named by Ford as one of America's most inspiring rabbis, she has been a keynote speaker at hundreds of venues, including houses of worship, the Christian, Jewish, and interfaith conferences, and for over 20 years, Rabbi Debra taught at the American Jewish University in Los Angeles. Of course, she completed her certificate in positive psychology with Hobing in 2016, and today she's an instructor at the Academy of Jewish University for Jewish religion in New York and the spiritual leader of Congregation B'nai Israel in Emerson, New Jersey. Welcome to the call, Rabbi Debra. I'm so excited to have you back. Last time, I'm going to highlight you. Last time you gave us an incredible presentation on hope through a positive psychology lens and also a Jewish lens, and I found that really, really inspiring. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about awe, because I understand that it actually changes our brain, that it changes the brain chemistry in our mind. It kind of like, in a way, blows our mind.
Indeed, it really does. One of my favorite awe studies was conducted by testing people's brains as they watched a Cirque du Soleil performance. And if you've ever seen that kind of artistry and dancing and the contortions of it, you can understand how it does blow your mind. It changes your brain chemistry.
Well, I'm going to let you get started. I know this is a very full hour. Everyone, I hope you have your pencils and papers, because we're going to have an opportunity to do some work ourselves. So take a moment if you need it to get that, and we'll begin. Take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Caroline, for that gracious introduction. I'm going to begin today with a personal story, true story, a little story that illustrates, I hope, a lot about awe. When I was 13, my family took a cross-country trip to visit the Grand Canyon during the summer. It was a driving vacation. And as we were approaching the Grand Canyon in the summer, the air conditioning in the car went out. And so it was very hot and uncomfortable. And I remember my legs sticking to the vinyl seats. And also we got a late start. So my father, who tended to drive a little too fast anyway, was really putting the pedal to the floor to make up for lost time. My mother and I were a little frightened. My brother was enjoying it. We were going barreling down the road. And there was tension in the car over the drive and the temperature, and we were kind of irritated. And by the time we got to the Grand Canyon, we could still see, but it was dim. And we all got out of the car, slammed the doors, stood outside, gazed down, said, "No, it's a hole in the ground," and grumpily trudged back to the car and went off to the hotel where our temperature, literally and temperamentally, went down, and we were comfortable, and things went better for the rest of the night. The next morning, we got up and we went to see the Grand Canyon again, this time in better light and in a better mood. And we had the experience that one thinks of when one thinks of the Grand Canyon. We stood in awe at the majesty of the view. And then I experienced another kind of awe, another aspect of awe. A sense of dread and fear arose because I could see a man barreling toward my father, who was standing at the edge of the rim of the Grand Canyon with no guardrail there at the time to protect him. And I thought he was going to be pushed into the canyon. But at the last minute, the man stopped short and frantically gestured to my father's head covering and said, "Quick, there must be a bracha for this. There must be a blessing for this." He recognized that somebody wearing a kippah would know the blessing. And my father recited the blessing, "Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of all time and space. Oseh ma'aseh v'reshit." This is the blessing we say for any vista that we see, any grand aspect of nature. You, God, now and continually enact creation. So I think this little experience that we had in less than 24 hours illustrates a lot about awe and spirituality in general. It's really not so much about what you do or where you're located or what the circumstances are, as it is about how you do what you do and how you relate to the circumstances that you find yourselves in. Awe is much more about process than content. And when you're in it, it feels like the most natural thing in the world. Who could not be awed before the Grand Canyon? Well, I'm here to tell you that there were 4 people who were not particularly awed, at least one summer a long time ago after a bad car ride. So when you're not in it, it can be hard to catch the thread of it, even under the best circumstances. But when you have an awe-filled attitude, then any circumstance, even under the most troubling condition, can give rise to beautiful awe. Now, before we delve any further into this subject, I want to invite you to look at a question on your screen and to type in the chat about awe that you may have experienced, not in those peak moments of looking at the Grand Canyon or some other amazing vista, but rather just looking back on today. What awe have you experienced so far today? Or looking back over your day, what awe might you have experienced? And please just type now in the chat, and I'll be delighted to see what folks have to say. I see seeing my son take care of himself, an amazing cool breeze after weeks of humidity, sunrise, and the artistry of taking a photograph of the sunrise too, and the gratitude that rose up in face of that, waves catching the sun, that glittering off the ocean or the river, that's beautiful. Anticipation of the filthy air ducts being cleaned out, the awe at how much dust collects, and then the sense of purification, amazement, gratitude, mist over the mountains, just waking up to the day. I love that Abraham Joshua Heschel said, just to be is a blessing, just to live is holy. Surprised by a hummingbird in my garden, and so many more I didn't get the chance to name out, but I think we have a lot of beautiful ideas there about awe. And we can certainly understand how awe is something that applies daily. It's not just something that we experience at big moments or important moments or vacation moments or grand moments, but that awe can be had anytime. So I want to look at a couple of definitions of awe, starting with the dictionary definition. And you'll see on your screen that awe is defined as a feeling of reverential respect mixed with fear or wonder. And sometimes in another dictionary, an overwhelming feeling, not just an emotion, but an overwhelming feeling. And it also plugs into admiration, fear, connection, connection to one's son getting dressed, admiration for his skills in doing so, the hummingbird. Maybe sometimes there's a sense of fear around looking at a big, beautiful vista or a deep ocean, even as we notice that it's sublime or powerful. And then the third definition says immediate and active. Awe takes you over, and it can be fear, terror, dread mingled with veneration. This is the OED, Oxford English Dictionary definition. And the mind is subdued to a profound reverence, meaning that there's a calming effect and there's a kind of a surrender and submission aspect to awe, where we defer to some kind of supreme authority or a moral greatness or what is mysterious or sublime. Now, if we look at the next slide, you'll see the positive psychology definition, which focuses, first of all, on perceived vastness. So that, of course, includes things that are physically vast, like the Grand Canyon, but vastness can mean the vastness of time or history, or the vastness that you perceive when you look at a tiny ant on a flower and contemplate it in its context. One of my spiritual mentors, Rabbi Sender, used to love to get paper cuts. And he would celebrate when he got a paper cut because he would love to stand in awe of the healing that would happen from that simple cut and how he could track it and trace it. One of the reasons I married my husband, one of the reasons he's a keeper, is because when we were first talking about spirituality and I asked him what spirituality meant to him, he held up his hand and he just looked down in awe at it and he said, just the human hand is awesome. Think of those 27 bones, that small hand and what it can do, what it can grasp, what it can achieve. So after we have the sense of vastness, which transcends our sense of self, we accommodate to vastness. That's the next thing. We shift in some way, large or small. It might be a shift that increases our gratitude or our admiration, or just takes us out of ourselves and causes us to be more attentive and mindful about the situation and the circumstances that we're in. Now, there's an embodiment also to awe that positive psychologists have pointed out, and we hear it in the language, in the Oxford English Dictionary definition that says awe is immediate and active. We also hear it in the language of how we talk about awe. A view was breathtaking or jaw-dropping, or a situation brought a tear to my eye, or I looked wide-eyed at what was before me. Sometimes we have a sense of being weak or bending in the knees, almost in a prayerful posture because of something awesome. And awe, of course, is what gives us goosebumps. The number one cause of goosebumps is cold, and the number two and virtually only other cause of goosebumps is awe. Awe causes the hair to stand up on the back of your neck. So when we think about these definitions and the perspective of positive psychology, it covers what happens in our intellect and what's measurable in our moods or our bodies. But it doesn't explicitly explore the effects of awe on the life of the spirit. How and why can a single experience or encounter with a tree or a butterfly or one human being or a subway car full of passengers create an epiphany that will sometimes change someone's worldview? This is the mystery of the Spirit. When we say that awe transcends our situation, it points us to something much, much larger than ourselves, and even larger than what certainly psychology could explain. So I think about a story that my great-grandfather, who was a rabbi, used to love to tell. This year will be the 100th anniversary of him coming to the United States. He's long since passed. Even my mother didn't know him, but we still tell his stories in the family. His name was Shlomo Polachek. And he used to love to tell the story of the astronomer and the philosopher who found themselves together one night under a starry sky. And looking up at the night sky, the astronomer, the scientist, who was accustomed to having a professional gaze as he looked up at the sky, was suddenly overcome with awe. And he had all these embodied experiences that we just talked about. His eyes filled with tears, and he had goosebumps, and he felt weak in the knees, and he wanted to bow and to bend his head in gratitude, overwhelmed by this large feeling within him about the large universe. And he turned to the philosopher, shocked by his own reaction to the night sky. And he said to the philosopher, in the face of all this, what is humanity? Who are we? And the philosopher answered him, in the face of all this, we are the astronomers. Awe causes us to wonder about who we are, and then spiritually to remember who we really are. Awe inspires humility as experienced by the astronomer, and empowerment as experienced by the philosopher, because it depends on our response to the vastness that we encounter. In Genesis, it tells us the human beings are created in the image of God. Do you feel part of the vastness, or do you feel dwarfed by it? That depends on whether you are emphasizing that you are an image of God, a mere shadow of the divine, a tiny reflection of God. Or do you emphasize that you are created in the image of God, ruler of the universe? You have creativity and the power to map the stars. Both of these things are available to us in awe. And I want to look at the Hebrew word for awe, yirah, which gives us the etymology and the double meaning of fear, trembling, reverence, together with wonder and delight. And in the Bible, awe is not just applied to God or to religious things. There is awe of God. There is awe of an awareness of God's presence by humans, which is distinct from God, of course. But there's also a commandment to be in awe of one's parents. Ish aviv ve'imo tira'u, it says in Leviticus. We stand in awe of the holy sanctuary. We are in awe of spiritual heroes and leaders. Moses and Joshua and Solomon are all treated with awe and inspire awe in the Bible. There is awe for powerful enemies in the Bible, like Assyria and Egypt. And there is awe for attributes like wisdom, discernment, bravery, and goodness. All of these things inspire awe. I included a quote here on this page from Exodus 34. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai and he encountered Aaron and all the people, his face was ablaze because he had been in such close communion and proximity with God. And it literally glowed on him. Aaron and all the people looked at Moses, and behold, his face was shining and radiant, and they were afraid and in awe. to go near him. I think this quote shows the unique combination that awe brings, because there was something beautiful about Moses's radiance, but also it inspired fear and trembling, a sense of dread, because we are alive and attuned to the power of the divine in the face of those kinds of miracles, and it scares us. Some religious thinkers talk about the difference between vertical versus horizontal awe. Vertical awe is awe that points all the way toward the divine, to the highest, to the ultimate of what we revere. Horizontal awe is about the created world in all its variegated beauty and artistry. And maybe there is a peak experience that's part of that, or natural beauty, or maybe there is Cirque du Soleil, as I mentioned before, or other kinds of music or art that inspire awe. Even the most artistic cooking. But there is a flaw and an inadequacy in only having horizontal awe. Because if you never point past those physical embodied experiences to a greater source, whether that source is God or universe or being itself, if you never point past it, then you risk becoming an awe junkie, somebody who collects peak experiences and Michelin star restaurants and exotic locations and more gurus, and you can never get enough of what you don't want. So it doesn't fill the hole. Years ago, Rabbi Jonathan Omerman gave a beautiful analogy. He said, some people think that spirituality is like collecting beads. You collect experiences. And you could say the same about awe, that this is my trip to the Grand Canyon, and this was my near-death experience that influenced me and scared me and inspired me and caused the hair to go up on the back of my neck and changed me forever. And this is the encounter I had with a tree that made me feel connected to all of nature. And you keep collecting those beads, and you think that spirituality is in the beads. But Rabbi Omerman said, don't be confused. Spirituality is the string on which you place the beads. And that's even not just your personal necklace. It's not your personal spiritual spine, I would add. It's a string that connects us all one to another, and also that connects us to the vertical source of awe and being. Wanted to share with you a beautiful quote from the Reverend Paul David Tripp. He says, we forget God's glory and long for a great experience of the glories of the created world. We are motivated more by awe of ourselves and our pleasures than by a heart-rattling, satisfaction-producing awe of the Redeemer. The war that rages in all our hearts is the war between awe of God and awe of the self. Now, that's a very stark dichotomy. I don't know that we're always in that war, but I think it's a really challenging and beautiful contemplation to ask, when I'm in awe, do I really get myself out of the way? Am I in awe of something greater than just my own pleasure or satisfaction? As we reflect on the different experiences of awe and the different definitions, I think you can find that awe combines a lot of disparate ideas. And this can be considered a paradox in a certain way: fear with wonder, a sense of pause and stillness while being more excited and alive than ever. Awe is fairly unique in that it stimulates our sympathetic nervous system, our fight and flight, as well as our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest. And yet, I think if we really look at awe, it's not about dualities or even paradoxes. It's about transcending those dualities and paradoxes to really experience oneness. in a moment of awe, nothing is divided or self-contradictory. And there is something inherently mysterious about awe that refuses to be solved. Awe arises in the face of the most mysterious moments, moments of birth, moments of death. And awe addresses the great mysteries. Who am I? Why am I here in this vast universe? So I'm just going to show on the screen, but I'm not going to go into now, a mystery writing prompt that you'll have afterwards in this PowerPoint that you can do to reflect on lots of mysteries, because I think sometimes we want to immediately notice a mystery and solve it, treat it almost like a puzzle or a problem. But it's useful also to just notice the mysteries and then to contemplate, is there a mystery that by leaving it a mystery, it would enhance my sense of awe and my life? Now, I've been doing a lot of talking. I want to share now a video that will give us, I hope, an experience of awe together. And we'll talk about it on the other side.
Hi, everybody. I feel like I'm at a revival. This is great. It's great to be back in my old stomping grounds of San Francisco. When I graduated UCLA, I moved to Northern California, and I lived in a little town called Elk on the Mendocino coast. And I didn't have a phone or TV, but I had US mail. And life was good back then, if you could remember it. I'd go to the general store for a cup of coffee and a brownie, and I'd ship my film to San Francisco, and lo and behold, 2 days later, it would end up on my front door, which was way better than having to fight the traffic of Hollywood. I didn't have much money, but I had time and a sense of wonder. So I started shooting time-lapse photography. It would take me a month to shoot a 4-minute roll of film, because that's all I could afford. I've been shooting time-lapse flowers continuously, non-stop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for over 30 years. And to see them move is a dance I'll never get tired of. Their beauty immerses us with color, taste, touch. It also provides a third of the food we eat. Beauty and seduction is nature's tools for survival because we protect what we fall in love with. It opens our hearts and makes us realize we are a part of nature and we're not separate from it. When we see ourselves in nature, it also connects us to every one of us because it's clear that it's all connected in one. When people see my images, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh my God." Have you ever wondered what that meant? The "oh" means it caught your attention. It makes you present, makes you mindful. The "my" means it connects with something deep inside your soul. It creates a gateway for your inner voice to rise up and be heard. And God is that personal journey we all want to be on, to be inspired, to feel like we're connected to a universe that celebrates life. Did you know that 80% of the information we receive comes through our eyes? And if you compare light energy to musical scales, it would only be 1 octave that the naked eye could see, which is right in the middle. And aren't we grateful for our brains that can, take this electrical impulse that comes from light energy to create images in order for us to explore our world? And aren't we grateful that we have hearts that can feel these vibrations in order for us to allow ourselves to feel the pleasure and the beauty of nature? Nature's beauty is a gift that cultivates appreciation and gratitude. So I have a gift I want to share with you today, a project I'm working on called Happiness Revealed. And it'll give us a glimpse into that perspective from the point of view of a child and an elderly man of that world.
When I watch TV, it's just some shows that are pretend. And when you explore, you get more imagination than you already had. And when you get more imagination, it makes you want to go deeper in so you can get more and see beautiful things. Like the path, if it's a path, it could lead you to a beach or something, and it could be beautiful.
You think this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you today. It's given to you. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now, and the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you do nothing else but to cultivate that response to the great gift that this unique day is, if you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. We just think of the weather, and even of the weather we don't think of all the many nuances of weather. We just think of good weather and bad weather. This day, right now, is unique weather. Maybe a kind that will never exactly in that form come again. The formation of clouds in the sky will never be the same that is right now. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face. A story that you could never fully fathom. Not only their own story, but the story of their ancestors. We all go back so far. And in this present moment, on this day, all the people you meet, all that life from generations and from so many places all over the world, flows together and meets you here like a life-giving water if you only open your heart and drink. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives to us. You flip a switch and there is electric light. You turn a faucet and there is warm water and cold water and drinkable water. It's a gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. So these are just a few of an enormous number of gifts to which we can open your heart. And so I wish you that you will open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you, that everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you. Just by your eyes, by your smile, by your touch, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessing all around you. And then it will really be a good day.
Going to pause the video now and drink it in, as the narrator said, really drink it in. Now, the nominal topic was gratitude, but I think you'll see why I chose this for awe as well. Gratitude is a natural outgrowth of awe. And when you really open your eyes and you see the beauty and you hear the swell of the music and you take your time to look, then awe follows, and it can be a beautiful cityscape or a field of flowers or just someone's smile. Now, one thing that I noticed in this video is the pace of it. It almost feels like you're out of time as you watch it. And certainly Louis Schwartzman, when he was younger, was taking his time, waiting for the US mail, looking patiently at flowers over time. And I wanted to share with you this beautiful quote from Diane Ackerman. "Wonder is the heaviest element of the periodic table. Even a tiny fleck of it stops time." And that is that quality of expansion of time that can happen as part of awe. Now, when you consider the different feelings that were aroused in you as you were watching that video, I'm going to guess that you had some of the benefits of awe. And that's our next slide, that names and what increases and what is promoted with awe and what decreases with awe. So we have that expansive sense of time and patience. I could have listened to that little girl all day. It was fine with me that she was picking her nose. That was delightful. It was delightful to listen to the older gentleman. Expansive sense of time, appreciation and gratitude, naturally, that was the main theme. A sense of connection and connectedness and closeness, not just between the people that you're immediately sharing an experience with, but with strangers whom we're only seeing on video. And then also a sense of connectedness to nature, and for some of us to God, whom we see as the author of nature and people. There is a sense of humility. We let go of ourselves and forget our egos a little bit in the face of such majesty. There is generosity. You want to be loving. You want to have blessings flow through you and to bless other people as you watch that video. There's a curiosity and a willingness to explore on the part of the people featured in the video. And I think it also activates that in us. You want to follow that path, to quote the little girl, to see if it leads to the river. There's empathy and compassion for people we don't know and don't know their stories, but we know they have a story. We know they have an ancestry. There is risk tolerance that is elevated. In other words, I'm willing to take some risks. I'm willing to smile at more people today and risk being snubbed because I saw this video. I'm willing to put myself out there a little bit more. Maybe his photography inspires your photography or other creativity. Maybe you want to go paint something or write some music because you heard the swelling music in the background of that video. I hope you feel a little bit happier and more joyful because we saw those awesome images. And you may even be feeling better physically. Awe has been shown to decrease PTSD symptoms and other just more normal everyday stress. It lowers inflammation, and it also decreases materialism. After seeing this video, nobody says, you know what I really need? I need to go put something in my cart on Amazon. We have a higher aspiration. Now, how do we know that these are the effects of awe? Well, many different ways, many different population studies, but I'll just share a couple of my favorite studies with you. One was done at Berkeley, where there happens to be the tallest grove of eucalyptus trees in North America. And the social scientists at Berkeley had people gaze up at those majestic trees for 1 minute. And then, unbeknownst to the people who were doing the gazing, a Confederate in the experiment came by and spilled a bunch of pens. Now, there was also a control group that instead of looking up at this majestic grove of eucalyptus trees, looked at the side of a nondescript brick building in exactly the same area, facing a different way, and also had someone come by with a load of pens who dropped them. And the people who had been gazing for just 1 minute at these eucalyptus trees were far more generous in stopping, in helping, in showing patience and empathy, and engaging in connection and altruism with another human being. We also know that simple things like taking an awe walk, going on a walk with the deliberate intention to notice something awesome along the way, help to relieve depression. And the walk didn't have to be in an exciting, impressive place. It could be something that happened daily and became very ritualized and routine, but just the inner prompt, I'm going to notice something awesome, created major benefits. I think we all can relate to this study even more than when it was done, because some of us in the pandemic have been going on daily walks in places we didn't used to do and noticing things we didn't used to notice. So I want to put up the next slide to share with you some myths, some falsehoods about awe, and some alternative statements that I would make. So there is a myth that awe is rare, that it only happens for special occasions, that it's dependent on particular circumstances and everything lining up to make something holy or special, that awe is always nice, full of sweetness and light and unicorns and rainbows, and that awe doesn't specifically have anything to do with morality. It's just a special and welcome feeling. But in fact, the opposite is true. The Orenstein 4 C's of awe. Awe is common. In a study across 30 countries, so very much cross-cultural, individuals recorded themselves as experiencing 2.5 experiences of awe per day on average. That's quite a lot of awe for an average person in one of 30 countries. It's accessible. It's not something we have to wait for. You don't have to wait to travel or wait for a special occasion or a special person to be around. Awe is available. And it's indifferent to circumstances. You can find it at the Grand Canyon, but you can also lose it there. You can find it in the simplest, most humble of settings. You can find it in grief, at a deathbed, for example. Awe is complicated, and it connects the seemingly disparate. We've talked about this in terms of paradox and in terms of oneness. Awe unites delight and dread, bigness and smallness. And lastly, awe calls us to something higher. When God speaks to Abraham in the book of Genesis, God says, Habet na hashamayma, please, it's an invitation, please go out of your tent and look up. Please get out of your narrow habitual confines and go out and look at the wide world. Now, we're not going to see it now, but I have prepared and put in this set of slides a moon video so that when you see the slides later, you can watch it, and you'll, just by looking at the expression on this boy's face, I think it fills you with some delight and some awe. What does he see when he looks at the moon? And how often do we walk at night without even looking up? I want to talk in the remainder of our time about cultivating awe, and we're also going to do an exercise, as Caroline mentioned, for awe. So please do have some paper and a pen or pencil ready. In the Bible, we learn in Deuteronomy 4, as you'll see on the screen, that awe can be cultivated. Yes, awe comes naturally. It is a birthright of every human being. It is cross-cultural, but it's also a skill that can be enhanced and honed. And that's why God says, gather the people to me that I may let them hear my words, in order that they learn reverential fear and awe of me as long as they live on the earth. And so may they teach their children. Abraham Joshua Heschel, on the next slide, makes a remarkable statement about awe. He puts it ahead of faith. Awe precedes faith. It is at the root of faith. We must grow in awe in order to reach faith. We must be guided by awe to be worthy of faith. Awe rather than faith is the cardinal attitude of the religious Jew. Awe is more accessible, and it also is the gateway to gratitude, to faith, to connection, to so many wonderful treasures. The Jewish tradition helps us cultivate awe daily through some of our prayers. It says on your screen, we thank you and tell of your praises for our lives, which are in your hands, for our souls, which are entrusted to you, for your miracles, which are with us every day. Pigeons on the windowsill, as someone observed in the chat, all kinds of miracles that we notice but don't always take in. And for your wonders and your favors, which are with us every moment, evening, morning, and noon. This prayer is called the Modim Anachnu Lach prayer, and the word Modim in Hebrew adds up in its numerology, its Hebrew letters, to 100. And Jews are traditionally encouraged and even required to say 100 prayers each day. Think if you had to be on the lookout for what's awesome, what can I bless, what can I praise, 100 times a day. God in divine goodness renews creation or creates the world anew each day. That's another thing we say in our daily liturgy. And of course, that applies to high holidays as well. I want to say just a few words about high holidays, which are coming up in terms of awe. These days are called the days of awe. And the birthday of the world is truly awesome because it is the beginning of creation and nature, but also by another count, it is the anniversary of the creation of humanity. So whatever is awesome in people, in the human body, in human capacity for kindness, for achievement, for artistry, for connection, all of those things come to light on the days of awe. And in regard to the birthday of the world, we read lots of stories about the birth of children, which is always a time of awe, and the relationships among the generations, another source of awe. High holidays, we talk about our mortality. In some ways on Yom Kippur, we live a day as if we were either angels or corpses. No need for food or drink, cleansed of sin. We ask in the liturgy, who shall live and who shall die? We talk about the book of life. And it says in the Unitana Tokef prayer, even the angels tremble today. The sound of the shofar is awesome. It gives you goosebumps. It makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. There is an expansive sense of time on the high holidays because we have all this time in temple, because we enter into Yizkor, where we commune with the dead in a very special time. We are also measuring time and our lives from holiday to holiday? What have I achieved in the last year? What is going to happen for me in the next year? Where am I headed? And we get the gift of consciousness highlighted to us on the high holidays, that we have the power of choice. We can reflect, we can chart a new course and a new direction. There's a beautiful Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that says, it's not just beautiful and loving that God created us in God's image, but chiba yetera noda'at lo she'ivra b'tzela. Rabbi Akiva says it's an extra added measure of loving kindness and affection that noda'at lo, that it was made known to us that we are created in the image of God. We're created in the image of God, and we're aware that we're created in the image of God. We know our capacity. And that is both humbling and an awesome responsibility. And it uplifts us and gives us courage. Now, the last piece is this awareness of responsibility that I mentioned, because when we reflect on our sins over high holidays, we ask, what do we owe one another? What does each of us owe the world? And literally, it is an awesome responsibility. Now, I want to enter into this exercise that I've been promising you, and you'll see it up on your screen one by one, some things I'm going to ask you to write about. This is a very quick response exercise. You don't have to write out a whole story. Just write a few words for each of these associations, enough for you to remember what it is you had in mind. Whatever first comes to mind is going to be the right thing. I'm going to ask you to write down an experience of awe in or related to some specific topics. So the first one is mortality. Can you think of an experience you've had in or related to awe of mortality? Could be about a book you read about death, or it could be experiencing the death of a loved one, anything related to mortality. When did you experience awe in relation to mortality? What was that about? Just write a few words. Oh, that's interesting. My list got moved around. Number one for me is mortality. So I'm going to go in this order and say we're starting with nature, because that's what's up on your screen. We're going to start with nature. And when we get to mortality, you'll be ahead of the game. So the first one is nature. This is an easier entry. I think I had it right on my slide and not in my notes, because it's much easier to think about an experience of awe in or related to nature. Just write about that quickly. And number two is mortality. So we'll reverse those. If you started to write something before, that's great. If not, there's a little time to catch up on nature or on mortality. What experience of awe do you associate with those? Just whatever first comes to mind is perfect. Number three, art. This could be theater, dance, visual arts, music. Did you have an awesome experience in relation to art? What first comes to mind? Number four, your profession, in the work that you do. Have you ever been awestruck? Maybe you had a sense that you were operating beyond your own capacity and were a vessel for blessing to someone else, and that was an awesome experience. Or maybe you observed something that filled you with awe, or maybe you get to do something that strikes you as awesome every single day. Number five, an experience of awe associated with learning. It could be formally when you were a student, thinking back to a time when you were in school, or just any kind of learning. Awe breeds curiosity. We look up at the night sky and we wonder. So when did awe lead to learning, or when did learning lead to awe? Again, you're just taking a few notes to remind yourself what you were thinking of. Number 6, what is your association of awe in a relation to a child? This could be one of your own children, a child you know, work with, niece, nephew. If you're a teacher, it could be one of your students. Any experience of awe in or relation to a child, even another child from when you were a child. Number 7, an intimate relationship. This could be a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a child, a close friend. When did you experience awe in or relationship to an intimate relationship? Now, we're not, despite the headline here, talking about how we should do it. We're just coming up with memories. When were there times when you had awe in an intimate relationship? Whatever first comes to mind is good. Number 8, awe in relation to a large gathering. Maybe it was high holidays. Maybe you were at a football stadium with everyone cheering in unison or doing the wave. Maybe you were at a large marathon run or in a symphony hall listening to music. When was there a large gathering that inspired awe for you? Even political conventions can count. And then, number 9, awe in relation to yourself. Have you ever, either in solitude or about yourself, had a sense of awe? I mentioned that possibility of the divine flowing through you, of you knowing something or feeling connected to something larger than yourself in a way that was very personal and maybe even couldn't be shared with someone else. Awe in or relation to yourself. So you should still see all 9 of these up on your screen. And if there's anything you didn't fill in, you can go back and take an extra moment. And I want to say that this kind of exercise, I think, is valuable in and of itself, but we haven't gotten to the exercise yet. This is just all prelude. So merely getting this far, just thinking about awe this much is its own blessing. But now I want to give you what I consider the real gift of this exercise. And that is, look over your list and see if you can notice any commonalities among all the reminders you've written down. In those different occasions, is there a thread that runs through at least several of these 9 different associations? What do you notice that these have in common? And if you notice a commonality, please do type it in the chat if you're willing to share. What do you notice about your experiences of awe? I see someone wrote being in the present. Yes. Hardly anyone is making out a mental grocery list while in awe. Connection to the divine, relief, a sense of, this is the way it's supposed to be. Simple things connect you to awe. I'm seeing, let's see, none of them had to do with art, appreciation of beauty and excellence, which is a via strength that is associated highly with awe, as is gratefulness. Perfecting one's profession and performing it, connecting to a dance community. Nothing on my list was bought or an object. Isn't that an amazing observation? So this is very, very powerful to me to hear these observations. I hope it's powerful to you. Transcending the ordinary, transcending myself, surprise. That's where the delight of awe comes in, is that sometimes it really does sneak up on you. Love it. There are all sorts of connections. I think that one connection that many people experience that hasn't been said so far is vulnerability, and an opening of the heart that makes you feel at once connected, but also a little bit just vulnerable, not even unsafe, just vulnerable. So what I want to suggest to you as I close now is that this exercise that you've done gives you your own reverse engineered definition of awe. It gives you a clue of how you can deliberately cultivate more awe. Because if you realize that all of these things were insights and understanding that came upon you, then attend to your relationships looking for understanding first. Look for understanding as a way in. If humility was a way into awe, or was what characterized it, there's a wonderful Jewish midah, it's a wonderful quality and character trait to work on. If transcending yourself was the way in, then think of different ways that you could transcend yourself in ways large or small in your daily activities. If you noticed an appreciation of beauty and excellence, then can you slow down enough to find one extra occurrence of that a day than you might have passed by before? So to engineer this backwards is an invitation that I hope you'll take me up on. And I want to share just a few last slides as a little bit of blessing to you. This was Abraham Joshua Heschel's advice, I should say, that he said, our goal is to live life in radical amazement. Take nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed. And Einstein said, one cannot help but be in awe when one contemplates the mysteries of eternity of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery every day. So I want to focus on that just a little bit every day. It doesn't have to be 0 to 60. It doesn't have to be, oh, I did my 9 and I could only come up with 7 of the 9 and I don't have it enough. And we don't have to make ourselves wrong. We can just do a little bit every day. And I have a way to suggest that and to build our holy curiosity. Starting tomorrow, I'm doing a 5-day awe challenge, and you're welcome to join me on that. I'll ask Caroline to put in the chat again how you can join me for that. And I want to bless you that you have not just new landscapes that are awesome, but new eyes. And to say with Carl Sagan to you that somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. And that is your sense of awe and your awesomeness. I have to say it was an awesome prospect to prepare today's lecture because I felt the importance of this topic. I had a sense of fear and trembling and reverence around it. And I also had a great sense of delight in knowing I was going to be speaking to the JCC and the WBI. Thank you, everybody. I'm happy to stay for a little bit and to take questions and comments.
Awesome. I was just working with the chat, putting all those things. I'm not so sure that there we go. The link is, there it goes. I put the link in there. Let me just add the spotlight. That was amazing. Gosh, thank you and Happy New Year. Thank you and Happy New Year. This was awesome. Very moved by your presentation, Rabbi. Wonderful, inspiring session. There was a question about, can we see the that video again? Someone said, I have goosebumps right now. You are so wonderful. I'm so very grateful for you in my life, says Vicki. And then I just also put in the chat for the Days of Awe Challenge from Rabbi Debra, and also 2 opportunities from our partners, Whole Being. Certainly the certificate in positive psychology starts this week. So if you're interested in that, I have 2 friends that are on the call, I believe, that have signed up. And I know we just have a bunch of graduates as well. So that's very exciting. And our partners, the Handel Group, they do a digital coaching program online. And those are wonderful opportunities too. And Thursday, of course, we're going to meet again and talk about more ways to prepare for the days of awe. How are you preparing for the days of awe, Rabbi Debra?
Well, I have both a blessing and a curse in this regard, in that I prepare sermons, which causes me to have to really think through the needs of the community and the zeitgeist and my own spiritual path, and to try to pull it all together. So that is a built-in preparation for me. I'm very blessed that both my son and my husband blow shofar. So every day during Elul, they've been good about remembering and blowing the shofar each day that isn't Shabbat. And that helps me get ready. Awesome. And honestly, in signing up to teach about awe today, I knew I was going to have some built-in preparation for these days of awe. Yeah. I have on my website, for people who may want other ways to prepare, I have a lot of different meditations and writing exercises. If they look under High Holidays on my website, there are many, many free downloadable things that you can do to specifically prepare for repentance, forgiveness, and renewal.
So important, so important. Thank you so much. And I have been to the Grand Canyon and hiked the Grand Canyon, and it was one of the most awe-inspiring things that I've done. You know, it's one of those things when you go below the rim and you actually experience the rock right next to you, and then you go down and look up, you have that feeling of awe. And when you go back up, you have the feeling that I've actually made it, and then the second feeling of looking from up to down. So nature is constantly giving us opportunities to experience the vastness. And I loved what you said about the vertical awe, direction of awe, and the horizontal. I'm taking that with me. Anybody else? Yeah, wasn't that amazing? Yeah, I see lots of hands raising. So thank you once again. I feel like every time I hear from you, I'm expanded in a three-dimensional way, in a multifactorial way. Like when your workshop on hope, I did my final project on hope, so I was fully excited about it. But then I just got a whole new perspective. And same with awe. I'm very close to awe. I did a workshop myself on awe, but your perspective just helped me so much. And this idea of the vertical and the horizontal is something I'll carry with me. So thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And I do want to encourage anybody who didn't hear the hope and gratitude talk, they can access that, and also so many wonderful talks that are recorded and included in this series. There's really such a wealth of material, including from Caroline herself, and so many different speakers. You won't run out.
It's true. All right, everyone, be safe, be well. I'm going to take off the spotlights so that you guys can say goodbye yourselves. We ran over a little bit, but you know what? Sometimes awe does that to us.
Thank you very much. It was fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much.
So great. Thank you.
As always.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Take care, everyone. Be safe and be well.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.